Hi, Carissa.
Hi, Lindsey.
Hi, thank you so much for joining me on this new way that we are connecting with one another and staying in touch with each other virtually via Zoom. So thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm
Sure.
so excited to, see people face to face. Even if it's virtually, it's so much nicer sometimes than talking on the phone or emailing.
Definitely. Although I have to say, sometimes I just want to go to a plain old phone call, which, you know,
Totally.
feels so old school now, right? Nowadays, it's like, oh, talk on the phone. Who are you? But
I
sometimes
know.
it's nice to just
So funny.
fold a pile of laundry and talk on the phone, right?
Exactly. Teenagers got this down though. This is something they've been doing forever.
Oh,
So,
for sure. Yes,
yeah.
for sure. It's a learning curve for many of us, myself included. It
Mhm.
is a steep learning curve actually, but now I feel like I'm practically a Zoom pro and I should go and work with them and do their tutorials. So we'll
Nice.
see. We'll see if the real estate market doesn't come back. Maybe that will be my next job. So on that note, speaking of real estate, tell our audience who you are and what you do, Carissa.
So my name is Carissa Abazia. I'm a loan officer with Summit Funding. You can learn more about me by visiting theabaziagroup.com or on social at the Abazia Group. So I'm a loan officer and people ask me what that means. It's my job to get people into debt. And I'm really good at it. It's also my personal duty to help people get out of that debt as quickly as possible and to educate people about how to invest their money in real estate in the smartest and safest way. It's important to save for the future. I think real estate is one of the best places to park your money. But I personally want to help people understand what it means to take on that much debt and how to successfully execute a plan to get out of that debt. So that's my role, and it's for people who want to buy a home or refinance a home that they already own. But I'm a support person for anyone who wants to understand how to make real estate work for them. So.
I love that. I don't often hear lenders talk about, of course, they get people into debt. Duh, that's a given. But I don't often hear lenders talking about wanting to get their clients out of debt as well as quickly as possible. So tell me what does that mean? What does that look like? And you can kind of tie this into something you and I were talking about a few days ago, being friends with your money. That's also not a term
Mhm.
you hear people talk about a lot because money is that thing that hangs over you that you just kind of want to close your eyes and not really know about or think about or deal with it. So what does that mean to you and how do you portray that to your clients?
So I start by asking them what their goals are. Like, where do they see themselves in 5 years, 10 years? Have they invested their money in stocks before? How much do they have saved? So it's my job to be really thorough when I, talk to a client about, taking away their savings and giving it to me to help them buy a house. Do they have reserves? Do they have money saved up for if, something like a pandemic happens and they don't have cash in their bank account to make a payment if they're, laid off for a couple of months? Do they have a retirement plan? People are so scared to talk about money, just like they are scared to visit a doctor. You visit the doctor, he or she will, may tell you bad news if you're not feeling well. So your lender pulls your credit. There's maybe derogatory marks or fraud or late payments. It's not a fun thing to talk about. It's not sexy at all. In fact, it's really, really scary. So I try to bridge that gap and help clients feel comfortable to talk about money, to be friends with money. It really, shapes how people live. And so why be enemies with it? Instead, I really want people to look at it as a tool to help them have a more successful, more plentiful life. So I tried to make it as simple as possible, but also talk about, that I've gone through hardships, and it's a normal thing in life for people to not be able to pay their bills. And if that happens, how do they get back on track? So if you turn a blind eye to your finances or your credit score, you're doing yourself a disservice. So I really try to talk about that in the very beginning, just so that the client feels more comfortable sharing their, more like the most valuable information, their social security number, their date of birth. I mean, they're giving me a lot, and I need to earn that trust and really, talk about buying a home, the whole picture, and like what that means, and why buy a home? Why not continue renting? So there's a lot that goes into the process. So what I mean by be friends with your finances is, the more you ignore it, the worse it gets. So it's better to, make it a comfortable topic to talk about, because it will only, help my clients out in the future.
Sure. It's a very vulnerable topic. All of this is buying a home, your social security number, like you mentioned, your credit, money. It's all very, very vulnerable. That's for sure. And speaking of credit, I know that you help people with their credit. What does that mean, and how does that work for somebody to face that and deal with it? Like the doctor's appointment, you have to pull your credit and deal with whatever it is and what's on it. How do you help someone in that situation?
So it starts by pulling credit. A credit report tells me a lot about a person. The higher the score, the more attractive they are. And it's based on a number of things: the accounts that they have open, the total debt that they have on those credit lines, how much money can they spend, the history, the length of time that a credit line has been open. So it really depends on the person and what I find. But I really think everyone deserves a second chance. So whether or not they've gone through a bankruptcy, or they had a hardship and they couldn't make their medical payments, and if that has happened to them, that will in turn negatively affect their credit score. But it shouldn't be on, it shouldn't be something like a burden that they hold. They should really, be proactive and take the necessary steps to improve their credit score. And I do help guide them through that process. I personally have been in a debt consolidation program. I graduated college, I paid my way through college, and I put a ton of money on my credit cards, and I couldn't get a job when I graduated. So I ended up working with a company to consolidate my debt and make payments. So I got a job. I didn't have a credit card for 5 years, and it was really, really hard. And I couldn't do things that some of my friends were doing, like going on vacations. But it was a really eye-opening experience. And it really taught me how to, if something bad happens or you make a mistake, how can you make it better? And so for clients who have marks on their credit report, there's ways to get those marks off. One of the ways is to call the collection agency. If there's so much to talk about in regards to fixing a credit score, but you can actually reach out to the 3 bureaus and file a dispute with them, and then it's on the bureaus to find a solution. So there's so many different ways in which someone can improve their credit score, but they won't be able to know how to do that until they pull their credit and they feel comfortable talking about it.
I love all of that information. It's vital to buying a home. It's vital to life, actually. It really doesn't matter if you're buying a home or you're trying to buy a car or get a credit card. It doesn't really matter. Credit is incredibly needed. So if somebody wants to buy a home, maybe now is not the good time, but they want to work on their credit, can you help them knowing that home buying is not something in their very near future?
Oh, totally. I'm self-employed essentially, and I have worked with clients for years, and they're still, not at the point of buying a home, and that's totally okay. I do believe in being a good leader and providing education to friends of friends or clients or anyone. So I highly encourage people to take this time and get prepared. Everyone may come across a set of circumstances that make it possible to buy. So my advice right now is for people to get in a position where they A, feel more comfortable with the home buying process, and B, that they're so prepared that, let's say a home comes on the market and the price is perfect and it's in the right neighborhood, like, just starting the process gets you to that point. So yes, I love working with clients. I have a bunch of clients right now who want to buy, but they don't know when. With everything going on with the pandemic, it's hard to, it's hard to even think about buying a home, especially since you can't look for homes. So I think it's really important for real estate agents and lenders to take this time to educate their clients, pull their credit, talk about how to get their credit score up. That really affects the rate they're going to get. It affects how much they can put down on a home, which loan program. So if people are sitting at home, why, call your lender and say, hey, can you pull my credit? Can you see what's on there? I've pulled credit sometimes and I've seen lines of equity that aren't my clients, and it's a result of fraud. And how would you know unless you pull your credit? So having someone to guide you through that process is really important. There's a lot of, credit repair companies out there. Most of them, they just collect money from you every month and they don't actually help you improve your credit. And you can improve your own credit. You don't need to pay someone to do that. So I love talking to people about that. And my focus right now is getting people in the best position possible to buy, because that opportunity will come, and it may come quicker than they expect.
Sure. So with credit right now and all of the COVID-19 guidelines coming out with lending, are they requiring that credit scores be higher than previously?
They are. A lot of lenders have put so many overlays on their existing guidelines. One of them is not lending to someone who has, a quote unquote lower credit score. I am proud to say that my company, Summit Funding, has not done that. We're still working with clients with lower credit scores. A lot of the banks, the big depositories, Chase, Wells Fargo, they're not lending to people unless they have like a 700 score or above. And a lot of people don't fall into that category. So I'm happy that my company hasn't gone to those extremes, but there are a lot of overlays and things have changed quite a bit. One of the things that my company is doing, and I believe all lenders are required to do now, is to get a second verbal verification of employment. So in a normal home buying process, the lender, myself, reaches out to the employer to verify that my client is in fact employed with that company, and to verify their income. So back in the day, we only had to do that once, and that was in the very beginning. Now we're required to get a second verification of employment at the very end. So the day before we fund a loan, we have to call the employer to verify that the pandemic has not affected their income or their status as an employee. So you can imagine how frustrating that might be for a client, getting a call from their lender like, hey, we can't fund your loan because we can't get a hold of your HR person. Well, that HR person might be working at home and they might not have their cell phone number on their signature line. So it's really up to lenders to be more thorough and to collect that information up front. There's like self-employed clients, for example, there's so many more documents that we have to collect now. We start by, visiting the website. Are they functional? What type of business is it? Are they internet-based? Are they appointment-based? Can the business continue to operate despite the business closure mandates? I have a client right now where I felt so silly asking him for this, but the underwriter said, can you get a current phone bill? And I said, well, what would a phone bill tell you? And she said, well, it'll tell me that his business phone number is still operating and that he, did not shut down his phone line due to what's going on. So we're asking for documentation that we would in a normal lending world, but we're just evolving as best we can. And there's no like one size fits all model. Every client is unique. Every underwriter is unique in how they, analyze if income is stable and will continue. So it's really up to the lender to have really deeper conversations with clients and their agent partners to explain that it's a whole new world that we're working in, and how to be transparent so that the day before a loan is supposed to fund, that it can indeed fund. If it doesn't, it affects so many people, the sellers, the agents, everyone, the buyers. So it's really important to do your due diligence and be as thorough as possible. I am very much a detail-oriented person. So for me, it hasn't been so hard to adapt, but, asking for an HR's contact information to store, to have on file, like that's something that I'm doing right now. And so, it's just a different world, but it's still a good time to think about investing in real estate. These little changes, they're not so drastic where it can't be overcome. It's just a matter of understanding what those overlays are and how to strategize and come up with a plan early on in the process of buying a home, so that you're not, last minute freaking out because, the person might not get their dream home. So there's just a lot more going on.
A lot of layers and a lot of uniqueness is what I'm gathering from all of this in your world. And for all of us in the entire world, we're dealing with that for sure. You mentioned a few things that I want to touch on. Now is a really good time to be chatting with your lender and your CPA and your financial advisor. Those people that you kind of put off regularly because you're busy, life is busy, work is busy, kids, everything. You think, oh, I'll call my lender later. I'll call my CPA, my financial guy or gal. So you mentioned now is a really good time to be reaching out to those people and having these conversations with them. Where are they at? And where should they be? Where do they want to go? Do they want to buy a home? Do they want to invest? All those different things. So tell us, what are some of the conversations you're having with your clients that are calling you for just that? They just want to call and chat and talk. What is that looking like for you right now and for them?
Well, thankfully for me, I'm a huge talker. So I'm like, I don't know how many, dials I'm making a day, but it's a lot of fun for me. So when things are crazy, there's really no better time to learn. We're all freaked out right now. The world has flipped upside down. So it's really my duty to stay calm and be a leader for my people and for my clients. So I'm taking this time to have deeper conversations with people I work with and just people in my life in general. This Zoom that we're doing right now is one example of that. Connecting in a way where we all understand that we're going through something really hard. So how can we support each other, and how can we lift each other's spirits up? How can we, be more organized? I'm taking a way deeper dive into what it looks like to buy a home, talking about things that, if someone gets in a contract and I have, 21 days to get them a loan and an appraisal and an approval and money to buy that home, sometimes it's not enough time to really get to know people. So I'm calling a lot of my self-employed clients and friends, people who are sole proprietors, and I'm, explaining to them that they should look into that paycheck protection program.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that the Small Business Administration is offering. Calling clients to, make sure they're checking their bank statements. The government is issuing money to people who make under a certain income level. I'm talking to clients who want to refinance. It doesn't make sense. There's pluses and minuses to everything we do. And I think a lot of people, they'll read the news and see that rates are low. But, yes, it's a really good time and rates are low, but don't just refinance to get an eighth or a quarter rate lower. It costs money to refinance, and I'm not a lender who's going to do that, go through that process with someone unless it really makes sense. And then it's, could become a bigger conversation. Well, do you have debt, and what kind of debt do you have? Does it make sense if you have equity in your home to take cash out and pay off that debt? I'm talking to my agent partners about overlays. I had an agent call me. I'm not the lender working on this transaction, but she was upset with the lender, and she said, well, Carissa, you did this loan a couple of months ago, and now it's not working out. And, things have changed. They are changing daily. So I think it's being really mindful of adapting and being a little bit more fluid and more accepting and empathetic, and really getting to know people. I've actually, even though things are not as easy in my world, it's given me the opportunity to talk to clients longer than I normally would, ask them how they're coping with staying at home, how, if they have kids, how's it going with homeschooling. So I'm really trying to look on the bright side and kind of be someone who can just lend a lot of support as best I can from my computer in my home. So
that's all that we can do right now, which is so incredibly weird. I love that you are pivoting your business to stay at the forefront of your clients and educating them and helping them and just supporting them. Sometimes people just need to hear, hi, how are you? Do you need anything? They don't want to talk about rates. They don't want to talk about selling their house or buying one. They just want to talk or not talk and just say, thank you for the phone call. I've got nothing to say. So good for you for staying in front of that. It's funny. I called a client yesterday while I was doing some client check-ins, and I called this particular client weekly. And when we chatted yesterday, I said, before we ended the call, do you need anything? Can I help you? Can I support you? And she said, I need beer. And I said,
don't we all?
okay. What kind of beer? Tell me what you want from where, and I'll go get it for you and drop it off. So today I'm going to Oliver's and getting her this particular kind of beer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Shopping. And so, it's just those little things. It's good for me. I feel good and I get to have fun and do something different in my day. And I get to help out her and treat her to something. So this whole catastrophe, while it's just awful, there are some really beautiful things that are coming from it. And I am grateful for those moments. So
that is really, really sweet of you. Yeah, I had our mutual friend Landon of Harvest Card. I bought a case of wine from him, and he ended up delivering it to some of my clients who are just having a hard time and who love wine. And they called me in tears, saying, so those little things, like you going to the store to, get beer for your client. I mean, it's super impactful, and it's a small thing that we can do. My brother's girlfriend is a nurse, and the nurses are struggling right now. So a friend of mine is actually putting together meal kits and dropping them off at the hospitals. I
Awesome.
thought that is just so cool. Like, what can we do to like make someone's day a little bit brighter?
Yep.
And I fully believe in karma. I believe in, and things will, if you do good things in the world, that it'll come around back to you. So I really love that you and a lot of other people are embracing this time to like be a really good support system for their community. um, I've thought about going and like buying food and delivering it to nursing homes or to neighbors who are, over a certain age and don't feel comfortable going to the store.
Mhm.
So those type of things I think are really important for us to do, and then when this is over, to continue to do. Um,
Absolutely.
mhm.
Most importantly, this shouldn't end. All the connection that we are facing right now, we can't let it end. And I don't think it will, because this global catastrophe, it's not going to be over in the sense of our life will go back to normal.
Mhm.
The normal we had is gone and likely not coming back. That's just our reality that we have to face, and we have to strategically align ourselves for the change that's coming. So what kind of change are you thinking will be coming when the shelter in place is lifted and things are going back to the new normal? Where do you see rates? Where do you see lending? Where do you see all these overlays? Give me your crystal ball opinion of basically the rest of 2020 and maybe even early 2021.
Man, if I had a crystal ball, I'd be on a yacht in Bali and
Me too, girl.
be dripping in gold. No, so the market it's gone through a lot. There's a lack of liquidity right now. And what that means is when a lender funds a loan, that loan is sold off to a company, and that company is called a servicer. They're the ones who collect the payment. Um, Unlike 2008, when the market crashed and you had to prove hardship, prove that you lost your job and that you can't make your mortgage payment. Now there's a national policy that says if you have a mortgage, you don't have to make a payment for 6 to 12 months. So if you think about it this way, if 96% of people are working from home and 96% of people stop making their mortgage payments, that puts a huge weight on servicers. And it's really detrimental to the health of the mortgage industry. So this is right now affecting rates. Rates are still really low, but there's certain types of loan programs that don't exist anymore. Big banks aren't lending to people unless they have 20% down and a credit score of 800. So right now, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they're working on a plan to make these conventional servicers whole. There's been a lot of talk about how to do that. So the coronavirus crisis, like crashing the real estate market in a sense, some are blaming the Federal Housing Finance Agency Director, Mark Calabria. His job is to regulate the mortgage giants, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And he's saying that he doesn't want to support Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in the way that a lot of people think he should. So it's an ongoing issue. In terms of rates, I do think rates will stay low throughout the rest of the year. I do think in 2021 they will go up. How high, I would never be able to know. But I think right now it's such a good time, if you can, to save up and to plan for a home purchase. It's still one of the best investments you'll ever make. This is not the first time our, government officials, it's not the first time the market has crashed. It's very cyclical. Recessions happen usually every 10 years. So it's not like we haven't gone through this before. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of kind of taking it day by day and relaxing, and, it will be okay. This too shall pass. I do believe that the government and our officials really, they don't want the mortgage industry to go away. They don't want real estate agents to have to find other, forms of work. I sure would hate to lose my job. I love my job. It's my passion. And I know that buying real estate and being a homeowner is so important and really keeps our nation healthy. So I don't think that's ever going away. It's just a time of turbulence. And when it's chaotic, it's really important to focus on, the good things that are happening and to really, really remember that things work out. And how soon they will work out, who knows? The good news, it appears that, so the market, what had happened is November of last year until through February, we saw like the lowest rates in the history of rates. And lenders were jumping up and down, we're working 90 hours a week, where life was really good. And then on March 9th, rates spiked high and it wasn't super expected. So the good news is that the wild swings in the market are over. We've started to see some pullback in the market. It's relatively healthy right now, and it will continue to be that way. And rates, I do believe, will stay low throughout the rest of the year. There are certain types of loans that aren't doing as well. For example, high balance loans. So for us in California and in Sonoma County, most of the loan amounts are either high balance or jumbo. So what that means is if the loan is $510,000 to $704,000, that's considered a high balance loan, and that's a pricier loan. A jumbo loan in Sonoma County is any loan amount over $704,000, and that's pretty common where we live. So it's really up to, for someone like me who's a direct lender, I'm not a broker, I don't work for a bank, is to find ways in which to make the deal work, whether that's, having a HELOC, an equity line of credit, and pairing that with, a conforming conventional loan. It's me having relationships with other banks, smaller local banks who can, who want to invest in a jumbo loan. So it's not that things can't be done, it's just being creative in the way we think about it. There's no one size fits all model. I mean, Wells Fargo for the longest time was the jumbo lender. They have the lowest rates. I used to work for Wells Fargo, and I personally can still leverage Wells Fargo and their rates, but they're not doing jumbo loans right now. So for me, I have to find another avenue, another way to help that client finance their home. And it's out there. It's just a matter of having good relationships with people in our community. It's a matter of being creative and thinking outside of the box. So if someone's feeling nervous about buying, don't be nervous. Just educate yourselves. Talk to Lindsey. Talk to me. Talk to people who know what's going on. I think knowledge is power, and what you read in the news, don't put all your eggs in that basket. It could be outdated information. It could be misinformed. So I think it's really important to, connect with, like your client should connect with you and talk to you about it, because what we're experiencing in Sonoma County may be very different than what someone is experiencing in Bakersfield or San Diego.
Sure.
I know, for example, like with all the shelter in place and business closure mandates, construction in Sonoma County is essential. And a lot of that has to do with all the houses that burned in 2017. Even though what's going on is shutting down a lot of businesses, it can't shut down people whose homes need to be rebuilt. And so there's a lot going on, but just be open to learning about it. That's my suggestion to people. I really do think if someone's in the someone's thinking about buying a home and they have the money, now could be the right time because of the rates. But I mean, even if rates go up to 5%, historically, that's still really low. It's still cheap to buy a home. My father's a mortgage broker, and I remember pushing paper at his office, and I saw a rate that was 16%. So it's a great time to leverage the market, but it's also, do it for the right reasons.
I like that. I read something a few days ago that was really interesting. I don't remember if I was telling you about this when we talked a little while back, but it was an article on should I buy a home right now? And the
Mm-hmm.
writing the article said, if you find a home that you love and you want and you can afford it, you buy it. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter if we're in the middle of the Great Depression, a recession, fires, floods. I mean, we have had it all here in Sonoma County.
Certainly have.
And so I read that, and it kind of made me stop in my tracks almost, because it's so simple
Mm-hmm.
that it doesn't even feel believable. Like, who would think if you can afford it and you want it, then you just go buy it? You don't normally go to that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good avenue for some people right now that are looking at buying homes. We have a few clients that bought a home post pandemic, and he did think to himself, am I crazy? What am I doing? Should I be doing?
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of had the same feeling. I love this place. I can afford it. And I know how to invest in real estate. He knows what he's doing. And so he did it. And that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work for everyone. That motto certainly does not work for everyone. But I just thought that was interesting.
I love that. It's
Yeah,
so
right?
true.
Yeah.
And it really just supports the fact that there is no blueprint for anything in life. You have a baby, like how the heck do you raise a child? How the heck do you buy a house? That's why you have experts and people to guide you through it. But it is so true. Don't, refinance just to refinance because you hear rates are low. Don't buy a house because you feel like this is the only time to buy a house.
Right.
I
And
had
don't
clients.
overthink it too, I think is the
Mhm.
other big piece to this, is don't dig yourself into a deep hole, which I'm known for doing. I'm an overthinker. When you do that, you end up getting nowhere and doing nothing, which is not the most productive thing to do. So sometimes
Mhm.
it is blissful to just think to yourself, if I love it and I can afford it, I'm going to do it.
Totally.
That.
And buying a house is so much more than numbers. It
Yes.
is very emotional. And um, I don't know if you've ever had that feeling where you walk into a house and it's kind of creepy, like you get the, like shivers, or you walk into a home and you just feel so comfortable. And it's a lot, buying a home has a lot of feeling in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we forget to think about it in that way. It's like one of the best things you can do. It's the biggest purchase you might ever make, and it's the most rewarding. And so it can't just, if you read that rates are low, don't just go and buy because you think that that's the right thing. You have to love the house. You have to make it a journey and make it a really fun one. Work with someone that you really like. I think people connect with you. I know the clients who have worked with you that I've met, they just love that you are so personable and you become a friend and it's not transactional. And I think that's really important, is to, just to make it a really good experience. It should not be a bad one. It should not be rushed. It should not be stressful. There's going to be moments where you're pulling your hair out and you're like, why is my lender asking for a phone bill? Um, why is my real estate agent talking about mold, or whatever it is? It just, as long as you have that relationship with your team, it should be a really fun process. And any kind of hurdles that come our way, we've done this so many times where we know how to battle it. So I really love that article, and I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, I think it's a really important part. And I love what you said about not being transactional. I don't consider myself a salesperson. I don't consider you a salesperson. I don't work with people. I don't partner with people, unless I have to. that are salesy or have that kind of aura about them, because what we're doing, in my opinion, has nothing to do with sales. I don't have anything to
Mhm.
sell. I am here to build a relationship and build upon that and get you the end goal of what you want. And I love that you share that same value that I do, because that's really important. When referring clients to you, I want them to have that same feeling from you. So thank you for always being that for me and for our mutual clients. I really appreciate that about you.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it kind of crazy? Like, if you had a, if you're applying for something online and there's a drop down box and you had to choose what category you fit in. I mean, technically we're salespeople.
Mhm.
I've never thought of myself as a salesperson, ever. And especially now, like if someone's pushing sales on people when really they just need someone to like talk to and be supportive. I think that because we're naturally like that and we inherently just want to be, you know, close with our clients on a deeper level, I think it's in a way easier for us right now because we're not selling. We never have. We're, probably will never feel that way about our job. So I really, really, yeah, I think that's super valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually went to an open house once, just kind of pretending that I was in the market just to kind of get a feel. And the agent was like just pressuring me. And I felt like running out of the door. It was not the feeling I wanted to have, and so I love that you're not like that because you always make me feel like this is going to be fun. It's, you know, a moment to really learn a lot about real estate. And I think that clients are drawn to you because of that. So,
Definitely. Thank you. I really
yeah.
appreciate that, those kind words. It's funny you mentioned open houses because I actually am not real fond of doing open houses. And the reason
Mhm.
I'm not fond of it is because of the connotation around it, that going to an open house, you will be sold, you will be hounded by that realtor,
Mhm.
you will be followed, you will be questioned, all the things come to mind when someone thinks about going to an open house. It's like, oh, I got to go deal with whoever's there and that agent and what they're going to try to sell me on. And so I've never been real fond of doing open houses, only for that reason, because I'm not a salesperson at
Mhm.
all. I can be if I have to be, but that's not my genuine way of being. So that's really funny that you mentioned that about open houses.
Yeah, I was like, I do not want to buy this house.
Yeah.
Because you made me feel so uncomfortable.
They just
So,
unsold it. They meant to sell it,
so
but they unsold it.
I was like, I don't want to make anyone feel that way.
It's a good learning
So,
experience, that's for sure.
totally.
So one more question about rates, because rates, they're all the rage, right? They're always all the rage. And now
All the rage.
especially they're all the rage. So tell us, true or false, are rates really at 0%?
No.
Really? What?
Really. So mortgage rates are not at 0%. So when people saw all this amazing news come out that rates are at 0%, it really has nothing to do with mortgages. It's a lender does not follow the Federal Reserve. We follow the 10-year Treasury. The Federal Reserve lowered the cost to borrow money, and that's where that 0%, 0.25%, that's where that came from. But I can't tell you how many calls I got, and it was really cute actually. Clients like, hey, I could get 0%. Like, I'm going to buy 10 houses right now. So it was another moment to educate people on the different types of rates. And following the news is great, but there's a lot out there that isn't always, it's misleading. And so I think I tell all my clients, if you read something in the news or you hear something from a friend or a coworker, call me and ask me, and let's have a conversation about it. For example, when news sources talk about rates, They're talking about information that was relevant a week ago. So every Wednesday, Fannie Mae puts out information about what rates are doing. And then it's based on what that previous week went through. So when Fannie Mae puts that out, it no longer is relevant. And then a news source will pick it up and start talking about it. So for example, May 9th, when rates went up, there was still like news that rates were, 2%, and it just was not true. And lenders have a lot of creative flexibility when it comes to marketing. So if something's relevant or something was true, I think it's 90 days, I can still advertise a rate that was low maybe a month ago, but it's not relevant today. And a lot of lenders are doing these bait and switch tactics. And it's not just lenders, it's a lot of different people in different types of industry. I'm not going to name names, but there's a lot of online lenders that, say you could get 2%. Well, you could get any rate you want. And I think people don't realize that. If someone wanted to buy a house right now and they said, I want 2%, I'd say, okay, but it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you points. And are you willing to spend $30,000 to get 2%? Does it make sense? So some of these online lenders will advertise rates that just are so costly. I really hate that part about my industry. I'm all for buying a book on Amazon. I am not for buying a home online. It's such a big decision. I would totally discourage someone from using, a Redfin agent. And I know I'm putting that out there, but it's so true. It really, you need someone who's local. You need someone who has a good reputation. I know that, they see Lindsey's name or Carissa's name on a pre-approval letter and a contract. The person on the other side might be a colleague. It might be a friend of ours. They might have done business with us before. So they're more willing to, talk highly of us to their sellers than if they saw Redfin on that contract. So I went on a little bit of a tangent, but I do think it's really important to, to anytime someone hears news out there about 0% rates, we wouldn't have a mortgage industry. It would not be possible. There's not, enough money to go around, and the government's just not that nice. Lenders aren't just that nice. They make money off of rates, and that's another thing about the mortgage industry. I know my company, when all this chaos was happening and turbulence in the market, there was such extreme volatility, rates would change like 20 times a day. It would go up a point, down a point, up a point, down a point. I know my colleagues and I were like rushing to look at pricing in the morning when the market opened, and the system would like shut down. So my company did a lot of work to stabilize the market for our clients as best we could. And we're luckily, it seems like we're really out of that chaotic period of time, which is really, really awesome. It was not fun to be, one moment I'm telling a client they have 3% and the next it goes to 4%. That's not fun for anyone. So I think right now, because we're stable, it's, making the job fun again, and it's easier to talk about rates because there's a little bit more normalcy. But no, sadly, I can't give someone a 0% interest rate on a home purchase.
Darn it. All right. I had a feeling that was true. Something to always remember is if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? Typically. And you get what you pay for. Those two things are always pretty true for most things we do in our lives. Not always, but most of the time. So thank you for debunking that myth that rates are not at 0%.
Mhm.
So I want to end with something fun before we have to go on to our next Zoom call, right? Tell me something that you are binge watching right now or really loving, a movie or a Netflix or a reality show. What is your cup of tea right now?
So I'm watching Narcos season 2. I just started it and it's wild. And I just can't believe that people live these lives. I've been hearing from a lot of people that Ozark is really good.
I
So
started that, yes.
I watched the first episode yesterday, and the first episode was crazy, and I
Crazy.
was hooked.
Yep.
And I really like Jason Bateman. So I don't, if I'm going to watch anything, it's probably going to be Ozark, and just because I was so captured by that first episode, and that's not something that always happens for me. And then finish Narcos because I really find it intriguing. I like shows that show me a world that I'm so not used to. For example, there was a Netflix miniseries called How to Fix a Drug Scandal. And it was about these chemists in Massachusetts and how they were like, so if someone gets caught with cocaine, for example, it has to get tested and it has to be tested positive, and that's the only way someone can get arrested. So a chemist in a lab, they're not really talked about because it's not a sexy job, but they hold a lot of power. So the show was about these two chemists who just totally like screwed up the system and didn't even test drugs, and they were just writing down what they thought it was. And as a result of that, like 35,000 inmates were released. So there's just these worlds that I'm just so not used to. I find it so interesting to learn about them. So yeah, gotta love Netflix.
Yep, it's very addicting, especially in a time like this, for sure, when we need a little break and remove ourselves from the real world.
What about you? What are you watching?
Well, sadly, we're busier than ever right now between kids and business. We haven't gotten a lot of time to watch TV, but we've just kind of started. I feel like we're getting each week that goes by in this pandemic, we're like, all right, we've got this. We're getting the hang of this craziness.
Yeah.
So we did start Ozark,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really intense. And
Yeah.
I Ryan and I both looked at each other and were blown away that there are the third season just started. We can't
Mm-hmm.
believe that this goes on for that long, because the first episode, that to me, that could have been a whole season. That was a lot
Totally.
in
Yeah.
one. And they keep going from
Oh my God.
each one is like, oh my gosh, what more could happen? Like it's really addicting.
Nice.
So that's what we're into right now. That and a lot of news, of course. We got to be very well versed on what's going on in the world, but also
Totally.
really important to limit the news, because like you mentioned, you can take a really deep dive into all of that drama and spin out of control and think that rates are zero. And instead, you should call your lender and your realtor and ask them.
Totally.
Really. Well, Carissa, thank you so much for hanging out. Tell everyone again your contact info, where they can follow you and find you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I had such a great time talking to you, Lindsey, as always. I really appreciate you having this deeper conversation with me. It's been really fun. So my name is Carissa Abazia. I'm a loan officer at Summit Funding, and you can learn more about me, about what I do and how I help clients by visiting my website, theabaziagroup.com. Abazia is Abazia, or find me on Instagram at the Abazia Group. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me, DM me, whatever method you want to use, and I'm more than happy to Zoom or have a phone call with you.
Great. Thank you, Carissa. I really appreciate your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too, Lindsey.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.